Once Lizra and Human crested the hill, in front of them was a long, rocky peninsula which jutted out into the turquoise-green waters of Quarry. It split through the ocean like a dagger, the white foam of waves washing onto it, trying to bury it beneath the tide. Lizra hopped down from Human's shoulder and bounded down the path to a secluded black sand beach nearby. Looking out over the waters, the semicircle outline of the red giant was slowly dipping below the horizon. The water shimmered in the red light, shifting from green to a vibrant yellow in the sun's intense glare. The sounds of waves crashing ashore was all that disrupted the world around them, a tranquility undisturbed except by nature itself. I remember you talking about a beach back at the facility and how much you wanted to go to one. So I chose this place specifically since it has the most impressive on Quarry. We should be far enough away from the town that nobody will bother us. It's empty this time of day since they don't wish to trek all the way back in the dark. Can you see fine in the dark? Well, no, not really. But Tic Tac said it wouldn't be a problem for you. Yay, it's not a problem, Human said, walking out onto the shore. The tiny black stones of the beach crumbled underneath him, each step transforming the rocks into a fine, sandy powder. He stopped a few meters before the water, gazing out into the setting sun that was trying to escape below the waves. He set the boxes down beside him and slowly seated himself on the beach, resting his hands on his legs and watching the world from between his knees. The green wake slowly washing up and licking the edges of his boots as he sat there. "Is it everything you were expecting?" Lizra asked, going over to Human and sitting atop the boxes. "Even better. Thank you." The two sat patiently for a breath, taking in the ocean vista before Lizra spoke again. "I don't think I'll ever tire of seeing things like this. Places like these are why I love the outer world so much. Untouched, pristine, just existing in their own little pocket of the galaxy. One thing we have that the core worlds don't is real, genuine nature. I know you've needed something to take your mind off. Well, everything. You always seem so down and stuck in your own head. I hoped this could help you clear it." Human sat quietly, watching the sea rise and lower, like a creature breathing in a slow, steady rhythm. He lifted his arms up to the base of his head before stopping, hesitating as if he was thinking something over. "I think it'd be even better to see it with my own eyes." He submitted to the thought and released the clamps at the base of his helmet. A small hiss of air escaped from the edges before he pulled it off his head. Multiple wires and connectors dislodged from his ears and mouth as he let the mask fall into the sand with a heavy thud. His pale, hairless scalp a stark contrast to the pitch-black beach around them, and his sunken features told the story of someone who had seen better days. A jagged red scar ran from the side of one of his eyes to the back of his head, breaking up the symmetry of his face. He brought an armored hand up to block the light of the red star in front him, squinting his eyes which weren't adjusted to the newfound intensity. "It's a lot brighter than I thought it would be, and everything's so quiet." He sat still as his eyes adjusted to the new environment. "I don't hear it all anymore. The little things scurrying in the rocks behind us, the restless buzz of the city, the constant sound of your heartbeat. It's actually quiet for once. I didn't know you always heard those things. You get used to it if it's all you've ever known. This feels so strange, like losing one of your senses you've had since birth. Is this how it is for you? Only in places like this, away from it all?" Lizra said, curling up into a little ball, enjoying the serenity of the occasion and the sun on her speckled fur. "It's nice. You were right. It's different to actually feel the heat of a star on your own skin." The pair didn't say anything for a long while, taking in and appreciating the peacefulness of the moment that they were sharing. The sun was nearly set by then. Great crimson beams of light broke through the gaps of the orange clouds above, setting the sky ablaze. Lizra finally broke the silence between them. I forgive you, you know. You don't have to feel bad for what you did. You didn't know what you were doing. Human didn't reply for a short moment. A bead of water slowly emerged from his scarred eye and splashed into the rocks below. No, I knew what I was doing. It wasn't your fault. I want you to know that I don't blame you for what happened to my people. It was a long time ago. Not for me. Human replied with a whisper, closing his eyes as he looked down at the sand underneath him. I had a long time in that pod in the beginning, no way to escape my thoughts. Nothing to do except dwell on everything I did over and over, again and again. You don't know what I did, the people I hurt. I know that you're not the same person that was there all those years ago. I can tell that you are genuinely sorry for your actions, and someone who feels that kind of remorse deserves a second chance. How can you forgive me so quickly? I haven't done anything that could even remotely make up for the things I've done. Because you want to be better. That shows that deep down you were always a good person. Regardless of what you might have done, you can still make the universe a better place here and now. That's more than enough in my eyes. But it's not enough, yelling the words as he stood up. Lizra hadn't ever heard Human speak like this before. How can that be enough? I haven't even done anything yet. It's not about what you did. It's about what you're going to do moving forward. She stated as she sat up, locking her small eyes with the creature towering above her. Whatever you may have done, you can always atone for it by doing the right thing now. That doesn't fix anything I did. No matter what I do now, however many fucking lives I save, I can never go back and salvage the ones I ripped apart, he yelled, turning away from her, hands clenched into fists. That's what I was made for after all. I wasn't made to differentiate between right and wrong, good versus evil, to think. That was never supposed to be my problem. I was made just to do as I was told and let somebody else worry about the mess. All I'm good at is destroying everyone and everything around me. Is that the kind of person that you think can be salvaged? You want to see how great of a person I've always been? Human reached over to something on his chest with trembling fingers. Nestled between the plates of armor and his bodysuit were a few small pieces of paper. He pulled them out as he turned around to the tiny Illyrian and threw them into the air over her. Lizra ducked down in fear as the photos floated to the ground around her, nearly getting caught in the breeze. That's how good of a person I was. See that happy little family in those pictures? How great and wonderful their life was? Lizra picked them up and looked down at the small collection of images in her paws. They appeared to be a personal keepsake one would have on them to remind them of their family. The first showed two of her own species at a beautiful connection ceremony, happy to spend the rest of their lives together at a beautiful mountain temple. The next was them holding a newborn child. You could see the joy in their eyes as they gazed down at it. Next they were in a town, the father holding the little one up in the air as it smiled. There was one of two younglings playing together in a grass field, while the mother ran after them trying in vain to catch them. The last showed the family of 4 together. The now grown baby from the second image lifted the father off the ground, laughing as they tried to recreate one of the earlier frames. I slaughtered them, watched them bleed out and die one by one, and what did I do the whole time? I was laughing. I was fucking enjoying another casual day at work as the little ones begged for their lives, crying, and had watched their parents be executed right in front of them. Is that something that someone who was always a good person would have done? Who are you to forgive me? What gives you any right to say that I've changed and am any different from the monster who murdered that family? I'm not someone who deserves a second chance at anything. I don't deserve anyone's forgiveness or sorrow or any of that shit. All I deserve is to be put down and forgotten about like the rest of my people. Maybe then, when we're all dead and gone, the universe would finally be a better fucking place. Human, I apologize that... Lizra tried to speak but was cut off. You apologize? For fucking what? What do you possibly have to apologize for? You weren't the one that looked them in the eye and pulled the trigger with a smile. You live in this happy little bubble where everything's so great and nobody's truly all bad. Just misunderstood. Well, newsflash, Lizra, the universe isn't some magical place where the good always win and the bad guys lose. 'Cause if it were, I should have died a long time ago. Lizra looked away from the images clutched in her shaking paws, tears flooding her own eyes now. Well, excuse me for thinking that there might be some remnant of a genuine person behind that emotionless facade you put on. I tried to give you the benefit of the doubt and hope that maybe, just maybe, you're not the monster everyone wants me to think you are. But clearly that's all you see yourself as. You may have escaped from the human ships. But if you can't escape from your own head, then what was it all for? Why even go through the trouble if you're just going to sulk around feeling sorry for yourself until the end of time? Sorry for myself? I'm not sorry for myself. I couldn't give less of a fuck about myself or how I feel. The only thing I even remotely feel sorry for is all the ones that actually deserve to be alive instead of me. Does it feel good taking that anger out on me? Do you feel better yelling at the one person who's tried to show you that there's more to the world than just anguish and sadness? I just can't wrap my mind around it. You don't know the first thing about me, and yet you sit here and tell me how I should feel? As if someone like you can even begin to comprehend what I've seen, the shit I've done. You think I'm someone deserving of kindness? Human nearly crying now, getting his words out between choked breaths. All my life, this universe has shown me nothing but malice and hate from the moment I was forced into existence. And from that day on, I've made sure everyone else felt just as awful as I have. So what have I done to earn anything better? You don't need to earn the right to feel better. You're not going to go out and do some heroic act of redemption that magically makes you feel better about everything, Lizra yelled back, getting just as emotional as Human was. You don't need to save me from the great danger of someone walking out of a store, or go back in time and rewrite the history of my people for me to forgive you. The fact that you're here now, yelling your heart out on this beach, proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that you're more than just some mindless weapon like everyone thinks you are. You have thoughts, feelings, regrets. That's why you deserve a second chance. She was panting, nearly out of breath from the way she was yelling back at him. You just have to want to do some good in this life. And maybe then people won't see you as, something that needs to be feared. Maybe once people realize there's more to you than just pent-up destruction, they'll actually want to be around you. And when you wake up and see that everyone around you can care about you, then you might just start to feel a little bit better about yourself. Lizra spoke, putting the pictures down and wiping the tears from her eyes. Human stood motionless, glaring at his trembling fingers before falling back into the sand. He brought up his hands to his head and yelled. There were no words behind it, but the meaning was clear to everyone there. Lizra carefully picked herself up off the box and stepped over to Human laying down on his back. She sighed, wrapping her tail around him, and rested her head against his. Then for the first time in his life, he began to cry. We were wondering when you two were going to show up. The hulking purple Enduran was waiting for them in the common room when Lizra and Human entered. Y'all missed out on the great Tic-Tac Argall adventure. Oh, you should have been there to see it. At one point, we jumped through a window. Yes, but that was after you nearly stole that farmer's prize livestock animal, Tic-Tac chimed in. I couldn't help myself. I mean, did you see how adorable that thing was? To think he was going to eat the little guy, I couldn't let that happen. And then when that one Quaran tried to buy you, thinking you were a comms array, you were so pissed I don't even know half the words you called him. Are you okay, Captain? You look like you've been crying. Yes, I'm fine. Please keep going. We didn't mean to interrupt your tale, Lizra replied, reaching a paw up to her face to check if there were still tears. Well, it wasn't that awesome. You just had to have been there sort of thing, Argall said, calming back down. We got everything you requested, Captain, along with a few additional items that Zate had inquired about. All is safely aboard the ship in Bay 2 if you would like to inspect any of it, reported Tic-Tac. No, I trust you two. I'm sure it's everything we needed. I think I'm going to retire early tonight. We can leave first thing in the morning. The OF is expecting us back by now after I gave them the last update. If you need me, you know where to find me." The small Illyrian went into her room and quietly shut the door behind her, leaving the three others alone in the common room. "Is everything all right with Lysra? You didn't run into any trouble out there, did you, human?" inquired Argal. "No, nobody bothered us. It was just a long day. I think I'll sleep here in the common room tonight if that's all right with you," Human said, laying down across the bench seat next to the wall. As he did so, the metal crunched underneath him, but he didn't seem to notice or care. "Yay, of course, not my place to tell you no. Have you put on weight?" Argal asked, looking down and inspecting the bench. He piped back up again when he didn't receive a response. "Right. Well, since everyone's settling down so early, I think I'll go keep Zate company for a bit at the helm. They need a break from working all the time anyway." Argal stepped out in the direction of the command room. The heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway with him. "Your heart rate is much higher than normal. I take it that it was not as well as you said?" Tic-Tac asked from the table. "No, it was a good day. I think I needed it. First day I've ever had off." He chuckled. "Just thinking some things over, that's all." Human was laying down, his arm over his helmet to shield himself from the light. "Would you like to talk about it?" "No, thanks." "Would you like me to put you to sleep for the night?" "I can manage it on my own, don't worry about me." "Understood. I'm here if you need me for anything." "Thanks, buddy." The Scav departed the following morning, set for the Illyrian home planet, Elurus. After a few days' travel, they finally broke into the outskirts of the system. Once an industrial world that specialized in manufacturing computer systems and ship hardware, it was now a fortress that served as the powerhouse of the OF's military might. Scattered around the system were numerous shipyards and production centers that were constantly bustling with space traffic and naval exercises. Upon nearing their final destination, Lysra called her crew together to prepare for their arrival. Standing on the table to command their attention, she spoke. "Since Zate already took care of getting us landing clearance, we should be arriving within a few moments. Once we're down, Argal, you will be dismissed. I'll reach out to you once we receive any new orders. Enjoy the time with your family. I know they'll be happy to see you." "Much appreciated, Captain. I told my brother Gurgal that we would be back in time for me to help him with a project ship he's been struggling to get running for years. He needs my fine adjustment skills since he keeps breaking the damn thing," Argal said, looking over at Tic-Tac with a grin. "Send your brother my apologies." "For what?" "For the fact that his ship isn't going to see its maiden voyage anytime soon," Tic-Tac quipped. Argal chuckled at the comment, and it was clear that the hostile tensions between the two from before had dissipated. "He should be glad I'm not bringing you along. Otherwise, he'd have his head in a dictionary the entire time as you try to talk him through it." Lysra laughed, glad that the two were finally playing nicely. She glanced over at Human, who was still nestled in the man-shaped indentation he had crushed into the bench. "If you had a paycheck, you'd be paying for that. But I suppose your help in escaping back when we first met is payment enough." She sighed. "I asked you earlier if you would be willing to accompany me to my debriefing and explain your side of events. It would help my case when I have to tell them that the weapon we were sent to retrieve wasn't a weapon at all." "I suppose that'd be the nice thing to do. When we're done here, is there any chance I could get my own ship on this planet?" asked Human. "Without money, no. However, you may be able to cut a deal with the people I'm reporting to in order to get one. They'll most likely make requests of you, but you have no obligation to actually fulfill them unless you desire to," replied Lysra. Guess that dream's a little more difficult than I thought it would be. I'll hear him out, but I'm not going to promise anything," Human replied, still seated on his back, staring at the ceiling. "Tic-Tac, I'm going to assume you'll be coming too?" "Correct." "Excellent. Now that everyone knows what they're doing, I'll go check in with Zate before landing. Make any final preparations that you may have." Lizra finished the briefing and went to go see how the extant was doing at the bridge. Opening the door, she found Zate wasn't working as furiously as they had been during the previous leg of the journey. "So, do you have any plans on arrival?" she asked. "Not particularly. We don't enjoy being planetside very much. Our work can be completed from here," Zate responded quickly, casually tapping away at one of the interfaces. "I've already compiled and forwarded our mission report. Our presence will not be necessary at the briefing." "You already sent it to them?" "I never got to look over the final draft." "You know that was supposed to go through me first," complained Lizra. "We finalized it when you went onto Quarry. When you returned, you appeared fatigued. We did not feel it was necessary to burden you with a simple formality," the extant explained, keeping its attention focused on the interfaces. "I do not appreciate you going over my head on this. It may have been a formality, as you put it, but those reports are still one of my primary obligations." She sighed, exasperated, bringing a paw up to rub her face. "Anything additional that you included that I might need to know?" "Nothing that we have not already briefed you on." "All right then. Well, enjoy yourself while we're gone and keep the scav in good shape. Is there anything that you'd like me to bring back for you?" "No, all is well with us. We shall see you when you return," Zate stated coldly, never once stopping her work to look at the captain. The scav made its final approach to a small OVE base on the outskirts of one of the larger cities. The majority of the installation's land was dedicated to the spaceport. It was filled with the hum of ships' engines as they constantly arrived and departed in all directions. It was a kind of controlled chaos, consisting of narrow misses and quick departures that could only be achieved by the extants at the helm of every vessel. Instead of landing in the center of the facility like the rest of the ships, the scav settled down into an enclosed hangar embedded in the ground nearby. Lizra was still at the controls when she noticed how they had not landed in their usual dedicated space. "Zate, why were we cleared for an enclosed pad?" "We have classified cargo aboard. It was at the request of your superiors that we exercise caution when bringing it planetside," they said without hesitation. "As I said before, Zate, you have to notify me of these developments, and if you're referring to our guests as the cargo, I'd rather you not. At least there's less walking this way. I'm not complaining about that. We'll talk about this when I return. I've given you too much leniency with your duties, and you've been taking advantage of that far more often than I would prefer." Lizra departed from the room, heading out to be the face of the ship when they all exited. When the scav finally touched down, it was accompanied by a large thud from above as the landing pad's hatch closed. Lizra opened the cargo bay doors and signaled for the ramp to be lowered to allow their departure. At the bottom, waiting for them, was a squad of heavily armed Endurans and Brunts with heavy weapons pointed at the crew. Another Illyrian in a pristine white uniform was sat atop a small platform that hovered at eye level with the soldiers around him. He was positioned in the center of the squad and looked less than happy to see them. "The one on the left, seize him. Isolate the remainder of the crew and search the ship. Leave the extant," he said curtly, whilst looking upon the shocked expressions of Lizra's group. "Wait, what? What did we do? We're returning from our mission. Ensign Marketh, you sent us on this mission. What's the meaning of this?" Lizra yelled down as the squad advanced towards them, weapons never leaving their targets. "You will receive justification following the safe procurement of the weapon and your subsequent debriefing." "That will be all for now," Ensign Marketh countered, while folding his arms and looking up at her with annoyance. "Wait, even me? I've got plans today," Argal shouted, looking down at the ensign who was already turning to leave. "Guys, come on, it's me, Argal," he said, drawing out his name. "You don't have to point those weapons at me. Drewball, we're brothers. You're really gonna do this?" "We're all brothers, jackass. That's not gonna get you any favors with us," said a different one as he placed Argal in cuffs without resistance. Humans stood there quietly looking down at the measly security squad in front of him. his intentions unclear as he analyzed the situation. He seemed to make up his mind and was getting ready to move. But before he took any drastic actions, Lizra quickly clambered up his leg and onto his shoulder, throwing her paws in the air. "Wait, he'll go willingly. Please, we don't need to make this any worse than it already is. We'll cooperate," she pleaded. "Orders shall be obeyed. If it steps out of line, we will use force," growled one of the brunts from the center. One of the others threw a pair of cuffs up the ramp to Human. "Put 'em on, and you, off of him!" he yelled, never taking his barrel off of Human. Lizra started to get down, stopping on Human's back for a moment when she was out of their view, speaking only loud enough for him to hear. "Just go along with it. I'll work something out. Please trust me with this." She hopped back down onto the ramp and walked up to the squad, holding them at gunpoint. One of them tried to reach down and grab her. "Get your hands off of me! I am an officer!" He didn't press any further, the majority of his attention on Human, who slowly donned the cuffs and stepped forward with his hands up in front of him. Lizra was separated from Human when they entered the base. He was rushed off down a hallway in the opposite direction of her, and she was ushered after Ensign Marketh. When she arrived at her destination, she was on the glass side of an interrogation room filled with a few other officers and military personnel. The opposite side of the glass sat a blank metal-lined room with a heavy door and a single bench in the center. "You're dismissed, Prior. We'll take her from here." Ensign Marketh barked at the brunt, then looked over at Lizra. "You will aid us in the interrogation if requested, and will remain silent unless prompted to speak. We will discuss your own actions once we're finished here." "Ensign, you don't understand her. The only thing I wish to hear you say from this point onward is yes, Ensign. Am I understood?" "Yes, Ensign." "Good. Commander, we will have the subject here momentarily. Are there any questions that the board has for Captain Lizra at this time?" Marketh said, looking at the most senior officer in the room. "No. They have read the report. I will be acting on the board's behalf for these proceedings," replied an aging Illyrian with silver and orange fur. His white uniform was weighted down from the large rack of ribbons and medals that adorned his shoulders. "Remember, Ensign, it currently believes that the rest of its species is dead. We have isolated all of the information regarding this case in a severed computer system to prevent its AI from accessing it. We cannot allow it to realize its species may in fact still be alive. Keep that in mind during the questioning." "Of course, sir," Marketh acknowledged. After what seemed like an eternity, Human was finally escorted into the room opposite them, the black box of tic-tac still fixed to his back. A voice came over the intercom on Lizra's side of the room. "Sir, we were unable to separate it from its computer system or remove any of the equipment. Handing it over to you now." Once the voice went away, Human sat down on the metal bench in the center of the room, once again denting it as he sat. But it seemed this time around he made it a point to do so. "Commander, permission to commence questioning?" inquired Marketh. "Proceed." "This is Ensign Marketh of the Outer Front. Are you able to understand me?" Human sat quietly, his orange visor fixated on the glass. "I will repeat the question. Do you—" "Yes." The room of officers had no reaction to Human's voice. They must have understood what he said. Lizra guessed that Zate had already sent the translation of Human's language with the report. She couldn't believe that they had gone behind her back and orchestrated this without telling her. She stared through the glass at Human, hoping he wasn't thinking of doing anything that might put him in danger. "State your name for the record," Marketh said, starting up again. "Human. Do you know why we are holding you here today, Human?" "No." "On the display in front of you are images depicting a species that resembles you. Are you a member of the group in the picture?" Lizra looked at the interface monitor on their side of the room and recognized the images as showed up one after another. They were the ones from the files that Zate had given her, these showing a group of humans killing her people in that ancient Illyrian town. "No. You share the exact same appearance as the species in these images. Is this your species that you see in the pictures before you? Yes. Other than you, are there any more of your species that currently reside in the galaxy at this moment? No. Are you now, or have you ever been, affiliated with the Corps or any of its past military operations? No. Do you have connections to any currently living creatures outside of the ship that brought you here today? No. You will remain here until you answer the questions truthfully and completely. We expect more than single-word answers. Am I understood? Marketh stated. Human stood up, looking directly at the officers through the glass. I remain here because that's what I choose to do. You remain alive for that same reason. Am I understood?